Mr. Ramsey. Does anyone else want to address the board?
Kim Robinson, Hopewell Township. Regarding busing, if I heard Mr. Colavita correctly, he indicated that he and Ms. Dolan did a quick estimate of what we would need to bring all busing in-house, and he said that we would need about 50 buses, along with drivers, mechanics, fuel, and storage. I was wondering how the dollar numbers in that estimate came out in comparison to the contracted costs, and I was also wondering if any consideration was given to possibly working with Hopewell Township with regard to storage, fuel, and maybe even sharing mechanics. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. Are there any other individuals who wish to address the board? Okay. Can you provide any answer on that, Bob?
Close the public comments.
Oh, we're going to close the public comment period. And Mr. Colavita, can you answer any of that?
Yeah, at this point, I would rather not give out any specific numbers. We were just talking, and this happened during budget time when I believe it was raised by Mr. Tallier, had asked about it, and just a cursory review of what it would take to get enough buses in-house, and that kind of really stopped the discussion right there. We have not broached the subject completely with Mr. Pogorzelski of the township about space that they may have over there. At this point, the capital cost of adding those buses would be prohibitive to the district at this point. If the board wished to entertain that kind of a discussion, we'd probably, I mean, it would be an in-depth study that would have to be undergone and time-consuming to do that. History has shown that outsourcing, I think Kim Bruno brought it up at a previous meeting, that outsourcing in the past has always saved the district money because you're not paying for health benefits and you're not paying for their maintenance on buses and drivers and health benefits and what's that? Or the buses, for that matter. So we haven't pursued actively location or space issues with the township. Again, we're trying to streamline our routes with jointures with Mercer County Special Services, School District Transportation Services, and our own purchase of busing to the extent we have in the past. But we haven't placed any hard dollars on contracted versus buying buses.
Yeah, I would add, since, yes, I did make that request, and you kindly provided some previous documentation, and I was a bit surprised. When you think through it, it sounds like a good idea. It sounds like something we should consider, but then you start listing all of the items and the overhead and the management and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so, for the edification of Mrs. Robinson, we did all receive that information, took a look at it, and I think it did show that the hybrid strategy seemed to make a lot of sense in this time, that we were taking advantage where we could and outsourcing. And then, we can always continue to try to strike that balance, moving a little more or a little less in either direction as the needs of the district arise. So we did look at that.
Bob, just a quick question. What was the question with respect to the township? What was the idea there?
I believe what Mrs. Robinson had asked was that had we spoken to Hopewell Township about using their land or their space to store our buses.
We don't have the storage.
We don't have any more room out back here to put any more buses.
But in the Shared Services Committee meetings where you had Judy Karp and John Murphy, Paul Porgaselski, and I met on a regular basis last year, one of the things we did talk about was, and we talked about this with Pennington Borough as well, is there the possibility of sharing a public works facility? The township would have to expand their public works building to accommodate our needs, and they'd have to agree to house 50, 60, 70 buses there. They didn't seem overly excited about the idea, and we didn't pursue it. We didn't have any money to pursue it. So it's the board would have to create first of all, you have to decide that that's how you want to spend your administrative time analyzing the cost-benefit analysis of doing that. And then you have to find land either donated by a municipality or purchased that you would to accommodate the buses.
The only concern I have, and I continue to make this point, is that obviously Montgomery is doing this with all their large buses. Now, they do have a facility to maintain it, and maybe we can talk to them just to find out what their costs are, so we can have comparable costs. Just a quick thing, not something that was done 10 years ago, because what I saw that was done 10 years ago was mainly based on we were having problems with employees and unions and stuff, and it was easier to make that switch. There was nothing to substantiate things on cost that I could see or remember from when that little thing came out. But I'm thinking, we can use other district to help us at least frame it to a point that, yes, we're making the right decision, and go from there. I mean, I think a lot of times we use like districts like Princeton and West Windsor and stuff. They don't have any facilities, don't even have any land to put the stuff on, where we have a little flexibility here from the standpoint is we have 3 municipalities. The township, yes, doesn't have the facilities to house it, but there may be some room now here. I just saw in the paper that Merrill switched the building, for land, and we're moving our emergency services over there. There may be some possibilities here. I don't think we should ever put this to bed, and I think to Bob's chagrin of doing all this, you constantly review the routes to see if we can do it better in-house. But
I can give you a little background of Montgomery. It just so happens that Jim Strimple, the former business administrator, is working on a referendum committee.
Right.
And when Aaron had brought it up, Dr. Ferguson's charge to me was give the board what we had done in the past and see if there's anybody else out there who's done a similar study. When I polled my membership, I didn't get any responses of anybody who's doing it, but I talked to Jim kind of off the record and without throwing Montgomery under the bus. They had done the cost savings analysis and noticed that I'm going to throw them under the bus.
Right.
That they found significant savings in outsourcing and chose not to maintain local control. However, that was done at a time when special spending growth limitation adjustments or cap waivers were flowing freely from the State Department of Education. Montgomery may have to rethink what they're doing in light of these new cap restrictions. If they can't generate the revenue to support paying more money to bus, then they're going to have to re-examine that.
So he's essentially saying...
Now, he's no longer the business administrator.
Yeah, but while he was there, he was saying that they looked at it and they realized that it's probably easier to do it outsourced.
Not easier, but they could save money doing it. They're bored, and they're a hybrid too. They're not 100% in-house.
Yeah, but they have a lot of, as I remember, they have, I forgot how many, the big passenger buses.
Yeah, they have more.
They have more. That they have in-house. So,
right.
I was actually surprised to find that information out. So.
But, that's... Yeah. His comment to me was that they could find savings, but at the time they didn't have a need to find the additional revenue in their budget because they had the cap waiver that we had talked about losing. You used to get money for miles. Every mile that you transported children, you got money off your budget. And it was significant that we were able to place an additional $400,000 in our budget in years past. We're not able to do that anymore.
Yeah.
But again, Jim, you're right that we should never totally write it off.
Yeah, right. I mean, things change.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, are we done now that, and we could move into executive session?